There is a door on the north side of a house in Tipp City, Ohio. It leads from the garage to the outside, and on the inside of that door, pushed flush against it, sits a large refrigerator. If someone kicked that door in from outside, if a burglar forced their way through, they would have had to push that refrigerator out of the way to get inside. No footprints in the yard, no scent for the canines, no figure on a single doorbell camera in the neighborhood. But there is a man on the phone with 911 sobbing, saying someone broke in and shot his wife. And there is a woman in the master bedroom, 2 gunshot wounds to the head, 2 shell casings on the floor at the foot of the bed. She is 37 years old. She is a mother. She is a volleyball coach. And according to court documents reviewed by Court TV, she is pregnant. Her name is Ashley Flynn. Before we talk about what happened in the early morning hours of February 16, 2026, we need to talk about who was lost. Because in every case like this, and there have been too many cases like this, the victim becomes a footnote to the spectacle of the accused, the shock of the arrest, the twist in the story, and the person at the center of all of it, the person who actually lost their life, gets reduced to a name in a headline. Not here, not on this channel. Ashley Elizabeth Flynn was born and raised in Tipp City, Ohio, a small community of about 10,000 people just north of Dayton. She graduated from Tippecanoe High School in 2006 and went on to Lee University, a private Christian college in Cleveland, Tennessee, where she earned her degree in 2010. She came home to Tipp City. She became a teacher, then a substitute teacher in the same school district where she once sat in the desks herself. She coached 7th grade girls volleyball at Tippecanoe Middle School. For the past year, she also taught at LifeWise Academy, a nonprofit that provides Bible-based lessons to public school students off campus during school hours. She volunteered at her church, the Christian Life Center in Butler Township, where she had once been on staff. She was a member, she was present, she showed up. What her neighbor, Sally Shank, would later tell the Dayton Daily News, "Everybody that knew her loved her. She really just engaged you. She was full of light. She's going to leave a big hole in our church, and our neighborhood, and our schools." The school district described her as someone known for warmth, kindness, and a beautiful smile that left a positive impact on everyone around her, both in and out of the classroom and on the court. Her obituary said she was a shining light of joy to all who crossed her path, effortlessly encouraging others along the way. Ashley was a mother to 2 young daughters. Neighbors on Cunningham Court described the family as wonderful and active. The girls and their 2 golden doodles often seen outside. There was a volleyball net in the backyard, a basketball hoop along the driveway. Yet they'd toss a softball around in the yard. They had lived on the cul-de-sac for about 4 or 5 years, the youngest family on the street, and Ashley Flynn was 8 days away from her 38th birthday. Ashley met Caleb Flynn at Lee University. They married. They built what appeared, by every outward measure, to be a life grounded in faith, family, and community. Caleb, originally from Braham, Minnesota, served as a music pastor and worship leader at the Christian Life Center, the same church where Ashley volunteered. He was, by all accounts, a charismatic presence, a singer, a performer. In 2013, while still serving as a music pastor, Caleb auditioned for the 12th season of American Idol. During a hometown interview segment for the show, he described himself as someone born to sing. He talked about his faith, and he talked about Ashley. He said he loved the Lord. He said he loved his wife more than anything. He called her very, very pretty. He said he loved her. That clip exists on the internet. You can find it. And today, knowing what prosecutors allege happened in the early morning hours of February 16th, it is almost unwatchable. Because by the time that clip resurfaced in news reports this week, Caleb Flynn was sitting in the Miami County Jail, charged with his wife's murder. According to his LinkedIn profile, Caleb had moved into commercial sales. He was listed as a vice president at Richard D. Smith & Sons and a family-run supplier for commercial flooring and worship seating. He and Ashley were no longer on staff at the church, though they remained active members. From the outside, this was a family rooted in every institution a small town holds sacred: church, school, sports, community, and that's what made what happened next so devastating. What I'm about to walk you through is a 4-day unraveling, from a community in mourning to a community in shock, and it starts with a phone call at 2:30 in the morning. Monday, February 16th, 2026, approximately 2:31 a.m., Miami County 911 receives a call from a man at 932 Cunningham Court in Tipp City. He is frantic. He says someone broke into his home. He says his wife has been shot. That man is Caleb Flynn. He tells the dispatcher his wife has 2 shots to the head. There is blood everywhere. He says the door to the garage is wide open. He says their daughters are asleep in their room. He begs them to hurry. The dispatcher asks if the intruder is still in the house. Caleb says he doesn't know. Now, before I play portions of this call, I want to walk through what investigators would later flag as significant. First, he knows the exact number of shots. 2, he's specific about it immediately. That level of detail, in a moment of alleged panic, raised questions. Second, he does not go to his children. The dispatcher has to ask him multiple times to check on them. His daughters are in a house where he claims an armed intruder just shot their mother, and his instinct is not to get to them. When he finally does check, he reports they're still asleep. Third, and this is something I want you to hold on to, he says Ashley's face is white as a ghost. That is a detail consistent with someone who has been deceased for a period of time, not someone who was just shot moments ago. Blood pools, color drains, it takes time. The call lasts approximately 8 minutes. During that time, police arrive. Caleb meets them at the door. He identifies himself as her husband. Ashley is pronounced dead at the scene. In the immediate aftermath, the Tipp City Police Department treated this as what Caleb said it was: a burglary gone wrong. Chief Greg Adkins told reporters on Monday that there were signs of forced entry at the home. Police secured the house and set up a perimeter. They deployed K-9 units. They flew a drone over the neighborhood. They were looking for a suspect who had entered the home, shot Ashley, and fled into the night. They found nothing. No suspect, no scent trail for the dogs, no figure captured on any doorbell camera in the neighborhood. The Tipp City Police Department has fewer than 25 full-time officers and serves a community of around 10,000 residents. As Chief Adkins would later acknowledge, they are not built as a homicide team. They are built as a public service team. They needed help. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation responded in the early morning hours. An autopsy was conducted on Tuesday. Results are still pending. And while investigators worked the scene, returning to the house around the clock, the community did what small communities do. They mourned. LifeWise Academy held a prayer gathering Monday afternoon in Ashley's honor. Tipp City Schools released a statement honoring their beloved coach and teacher. The Christian Life Center, the Flynn family's church, asked the community to pray for Caleb and the 2 daughters. Prayer-adorned ribbons appeared on light poles along Main Street. A GoFundMe was launched showing the entire family, including Caleb, with a caption asking for prayers for the husband and daughters. A local restaurant, Red Devil Pizza and Deli, announced a fundraiser that weekend. Now, a portion of all sales would go to the family. The community was not looking at Caleb Flynn. They were looking for the person Caleb said broke into his house. But by Wednesday, the language from law enforcement changed, and that change was the first crack in the story Caleb Flynn told. Wednesday night, 2 days after Ashley's murder, the Tipp City Police Department releases a statement. It's brief, but 2 phrases in it would signal everything. The first, investigators describe the murder as an isolated incident targeting this specific residence. The second, no information at this time to believe the public is in any danger. If a stranger broke into the Flynn home, shot Ashley, and escaped, if that person was still out there, why would the public not be in danger, unless no one broke in? The same day, Chief Adkins called in the FBI. Think about that. A town of 10,000 people, a police force of 25 officers, and within 48 hours, the FBI is on the ground. Not because of a manhunt for a burglar, because the story didn't add up. Now I want to take you inside that house, because this is where Caleb Flynn's account of what happened falls apart. Not because of what investigators discovered in the bedroom, but because of what they found in the garage. According to the criminal complaint and affidavit filed Friday morning, documents I've reviewed, here is what police found when they arrived. The side door to the garage on the north side of the house was open. This is the door Caleb described as the point of entry for the alleged intruder. Ashley was in the master bedroom, in bed, with at least one gunshot wound to the head. 2 shell casings were on the floor at the foot of the bed. Inside the garage, the center console of a 2024 Ford pickup truck was open. Caleb told police that is where he kept his handgun. So the alleged burglar's story goes like this. An intruder forces open the side garage door, enters the garage, happens to find an unlocked pickup truck, happens to find a handgun in the center console, takes that weapon upstairs to the master bedroom, shoots Ashley twice in the head at close range, and then escapes into the night, leaving no trace, no scent, no footage, no DNA. But here is the detail that, according to reporting, made the entire narrative physically impossible. That side garage door, the one the intruder allegedly kicked in, had a large refrigerator positioned directly in front of it on the inside. The affidavit states that the refrigerator would have had to be pushed to open the door. A burglar does not kick in a door and push a refrigerator out of the way from the outside. That's not how physics works. That's not how break-ins work. That refrigerator was staged. That door was opened from the inside. Thursday evening, February 20th. The same day, the Christian Life Center announced a celebration of life service for Ashley scheduled for Sunday. At approximately 5:07 p.m., Caleb Carl Flynn, 39 years old, was booked into the Miami County Jail. 1 count of murder, 2 counts of felonious assault, which appear to correspond to the 2 gunshots, and 2 counts of tampering with evidence for staging the crime scene that led officers astray. The community that had been praying for him was now processing the allegation that he was the one who killed her. Neighbor John Leaning, who lived across the street, told reporters, "It's been very disconcerting. You think you know your neighbors." And by Friday, the church that was supposed to host Ashley's celebration of life announced the public service was canceled. Pastor Jordan Hansen released a statement acknowledging that 2 young daughters have lost their mother, that a family is devastated, and calling on the community to pray, guard against gossip and speculation, and be a church marked by prayer, wisdom, restraint, and love. The next morning, Caleb Flynn appeared before a judge, and what he said, and what the judge ordered, reveals the reality of what these 2 little girls are now facing. Friday morning, February 21st, 7 a.m., Caleb Flynn appears via video from the Miami County Jail before Judge Samuel Huffman. The charges are read: 1 count of murder, a first-degree felony, 2 counts of felonious assault, second-degree felonies, 2 counts of tampering with evidence, third-degree felonies. He pleads not guilty. When the judge explains that bond must be set, Caleb says he doesn't really understand. The judge explains it's about ensuring he shows up for court, that he can tell the court whether he considers himself a flight risk. Caleb says, "I just want to take care of my daughters. I'm not a risk." The judge sets bond at $2 million. If Caleb posts it, he will be placed on pretrial services with electronic monitoring and house arrest. And then the judge says the part that breaks through the legal formality. Caleb is ordered to have no contact whatsoever directly or indirectly through a third party, with certain individuals. He is not permitted to speak to them in any way, shape, or form. That includes electronic communications. He is not allowed to communicate through family members. The emotion in the courtroom when Caleb is told he cannot contact his children is visible. But here is what I need you to understand about that moment. Those two daughters, Alyssa and Ava, slept through the night their mother was allegedly murdered by their father. They woke up in a house that was a crime scene. Their mother was gone, and within 4 days, their father was gone too. They are now in the care of Ashley's mother. Caleb Flynn is being represented by L. Patrick Mulligan of the Dayton law firm Mormond and Mulligan. And Mulligan has already begun publicly pushing back. He called the speed of the investigation disturbing and questioned the thoroughness of the case. He described the $2 million bond as unnecessarily high and said it denied Caleb the opportunity to attend his own wife's funeral. In a statement, Mulligan said, "When the government runs out of leads or can't develop leads and looks at a surviving spouse in cases such as these, the chance of a wrongful conviction increases. This is a case that is going to be fought, and it's important to acknowledge that Caleb Flynn has pleaded not guilty. He is legally presumed innocent. The defense is signaling that they believe this investigation was rushed, but the prosecution has court filings that say otherwise. They have the staged crime scene. They have the refrigerator. They have the shell casings. They have the truck console. They have whatever Caleb told detectives during the voluntary interview at the Tipp City police station that began around 4:30 a.m. Monday. And they have a pregnant woman shot twice in the head in her own bed 8 days before her 38th birthday. And the preliminary hearing is scheduled for February 26th. Here is what we don't know, and I want to be transparent about that, because this case is still in its earliest stages. We don't know the motive. We don't know what, if anything, was happening in this marriage behind the public persona. We don't know whether there were financial pressures, secret relationships, or other factors that prosecutors believe led to this. We don't know exactly when Ashley was killed, only that it was in the early morning hours. We don't know how much time passed between the shooting and the 911 call. We don't know what Caleb did in that window. We don't know what Caleb said during his voluntary interview with detectives. We don't know what digital evidence, phone records, search history, surveillance footage may exist. We don't know what the autopsy will reveal beyond the cause of death. And we don't know fully the impact on those two little girls who are now at the center of something no child should ever have to navigate. What we do know is that Ashley Flynn was a person who poured her life into other people, into her students, into her players, into her church, into her community, into her family. And that community, the one that tied ribbons to light poles and raised money and prayed for her husband, is now grappling with the possibility that the danger was never outside the house. It was in the bed next to her. This case is developing. The preliminary hearing is set for February 26th, and we will be covering it. If there are updates, new evidence, new filings, new developments, we will bring them to you here. If this case matters to you, and if telling Ashley's story the right way matters to you, subscribe. That's how we keep covering these cases. That's how we keep the focus on the people who were lost, not just the people who are accused. This is Gravel Ghost Basement, and Ashley Flynn deserved better than this.